French people must be ready to sacrifice their own children.
I would die for my country. With 81 years today, I can die for my country. You know, I am neutral. As you know, I am not a KGB man. If you are a patriot today, if you say the truth, you have real trouble. When you get thousands or millions of Muslim people, at that point you may have a problem, you know. And since 40 years, fear zero, 50 years.
Zvezda Holding presents Dynamic Spectrum Talks now.
Hello, dear friends. This is Dynamic Spectrum Talks podcast, a place where we look for new horizons of mutual understanding. I am Anna Shafran, and this is my colleague Yuri Lindra.
Hello, everyone.
Today, Russia is facing challenges that threaten the sovereignty of our country, despite the facts that Western countries are doing everything possible to make relations between us only worse. Some Europeans simply cannot bear to see how friendship and the historical bond between our peoples are being destroyed. However, there are many people strictly opposed to what is happening now, and we have seen many of them on our podcast. Today in our studio, we have a guest with a huge international experience, a well-known French writer, columnist, graduate of Columbia University and Harvard Business School, Marc Rousset. Marc, hello.
Thank you for your welcome.
Bonjour, comment ça
Bonjour,
va?
monsieur. How are you?
Mark, traditionally we ask our esteemed guests about Russia, because we usually talk with people from different countries, from different even parts of the world, and all of them are united with the one fact. This fact is Russia. Some already moved to Russia or decided to continue their destiny together with our country, with our people. Some just have good approaches, good intentions towards Russia, and do what they can at their own level in order to promote friendship between the country of their origins and the Russian Federation. And you look a little bit different. You neither live in Russia nor somehow affiliated with our country, but still you promote this impulse of friendship. You write a lot. You try to reveal the truth about the plot of current geopolitical amendments which are taking place right now. You push for our common agenda, I mean European and Russian agenda. How did everything start? What was the beginning of your story, and how in your life, in your story, Russia appeared?
Regarding Russia?
Yes.
I will tell you the truth, which is incredible. You know, it's hazard in life, but it's a real truth. I have no connection at all with Russia, because I'm very German-minded with a language. I'm a very serious man, too serious man. My heart is French. I like my language. I'm very proud of my language. But my attitude, I was very, when I met the German people, I learned to understand Germany, and I become also a friend of Germany. When I was young, I never married even a German woman. But now, but I keep my head, and for the time being, regarding Germany, I say as long as the AfD doesn't come at the power in Germany, French people, we will never see the end. CDU will be always a knight of the USA, and even something. Either for doing something together with France or doing together with Russia. Regarding Germany, it is written in my book, it cannot be only in AfD come at the power. But and one day, and I read, which was very important for me, because I'm basically at the very beginning a man of management. You know, I'm PhD in economics. I come from the best graduate school of business in France, and so on. And in fact, for a personal reason, I supposed to be number one CEO of a big company, and for a question of honor, I lost millions of euros in my life, and on a voluntary basis, I didn't come back because of a personal problem in a big company, and I compensated this career deception, even if it was I did this, and I don't regret it because my honor was in fact. But what the psychological people call the compensation effect, sublimation effect, and in fact. I did this. I tried to unconsciously, and I became an author. Although my body is more toward action, and I answer your question. And I read a very important review that Alexander Dugin, even himself, read a lot of time, which is called Review Elements in France, with Mr. Alain Benoit, who is a friend of Alexander Dugin. Alexander Dugin himself tried to launch such a very high intellectual rightist review. And I tell you, which is total to me, I only speak the truth, nothing else. I saw one, turning the pages of this review element, I saw the famous movie with the famous night of
what is the title of the movie?
Of Russia, you know, Nevsky, Alexander Nevsky, with the famous Russian cineast, you know,
Eisenstein.
Blah, blah. I tell you, it's true. When I saw this medieval helmet, I still remember the photograph, which is still in my mind. I was very impressed, and it gives me the appeal of this of the East, you know, a type of appeal of the East, the mystery of the East, the strength of the East, you know, this Russia, what it represents for me, and so on.
Eastern Europe,
yeah, because I'm a Western European, and this gives me the incentive to have interest of for Russia. Third point was a rational reaction. I made a little bit like General de Gaulle. I am not General de Gaulle, but I made the same thing. You know, we get also some deception with Germany, as you know, after the famous treaty of in 1963. You know, when the Germans tried to put some preamble on the famous treaty between France and Germany. And what did de Gaulle? Because of his deception with Germany, he wrote this himself in the years 94, 95, 96. He said, okay, now we, to his Mr. Alain Perfit, we wrote one of forward of my book. He said to Mr. Alain Perfit, okay, Alain Perfit, because the Germans, he doesn't work with the Germans, we the French, we will take also our freedom, I will go all over the world. And de Gaulle, because of his deception with Germany, went all over the world, and in Quebec, long live free Quebec, and to Vietnam, and so on. And me, in fact, I started to have interest with Russia. And it came to the point where I was a pioneer in the intellectual world, because I started to learn Russia in the same time I became a pioneer in the intellectual world, because I wrote already in 2008 a book who nobody wrote in the world, which was entitled The New Europe, Paris, Berlin, Moscow, with the foreword of Yuri Rubinsky, who was with very age. He's still living now at the Institute of Europe of the Academy of Science of Russia. He came to Paris. I invited him every time for lunch, and he was with his Ukrainian origin. And that's the way I started with writing a first geopolitics book. after my previous experience with the New Europe of Charlemagne, when I was in Harvard, and also in the meantime, I had written another book with the number one of the Patronat Français. It means the number one, the CEO in France with the number one organization for all the companies in France. And with this man, we wrote a foreword of my book. I wrote a book called The Euro-Ricans, to show, I saying in this book, we are not anymore Europeans, we are Euro-Ricans. It means we're thinking like the Americans, but we are living in Europe. And it shows you that all my books have always something to do with Germany, with America, with Europe. I wrote 6-7 books, like this. I wrote another one, which was a theoretical book about money and heroism. It was a conceptual book. And I write also another book where I made a strategic mistake. It means I wrote a book which was, I not remember the exact title, but I said How to Save France, which was very pretentious as a title.
How to Save France.
How to Save France. And then I put for friendship with Russia. I wrote some chapters about Russia in this book. And I was very disappointed or very surprised that people were more interested by what I wrote about Russia than what about my theory, how to bring back France on its feet, because I'm a PhD in economics, I am a previous CEO in companies. But people were more interested by Russia. And then
we don't care about France, give us more Russia.
Yes, people were more interested by what I said in my book about Russia. And I said what we call acte manqué in French. It means you have missed something, And I compensated this acte manqué. It means, in English, I say in American, acte manqué, it means you missed something, an action which we didn't succeed, unsuccessful action. And I had this, sorry to say, maybe a very intelligent idea to write something. It came, like it's a hazard when you have some maybe very good idea. Sometimes it's hazard, and to write a book which is a type of synthesis of my old thinking since 30 years of thinking, because about this book, first part, why the French the Europeans we must forget about America, and why we must go nearer from Russia, And I went back to all, which I never did up to now, to all my previous books, when I wrote about the Germans, about the Euro-Ricans, about the last book. And then a friend of mine write a book about our false friend, our friend America.
Marc, and let's continue the topic.
And that's why I came back to write about Russia.
Yes, let's continue the topic of your books. You have already mentioned several your books. By the way, their titles speak for themselves. For example, How to Save Europe, New Europe, Paris, Berlin, Moscow, and your latest book is Our False Friend America, for an Alliance with Russia. This book, we know that it was published this year and it was presented in June at the round table of Institute of Europe of Russian Academy of Sciences. Why should we consider America a false friend? The main question.
Yes, but first of all, with a joke, Mr. Kissinger answered your question, dear.
The former State Secretary of the United States.
You know what Kissinger say, with a friend, America. If you are friend of America, no, if you are enemy of America, you better care of yourself. But if you are a friend, it's still worse because the friends of America are always very badly treated. It was Kissinger himself said in a very famous wording, I forgot the exact wording, which is in my book also. So in fact, Kissinger himself recognized that friends of America can well be treated, and the examples are all over the world. And the people who trusted America in Vietnam, in Afghanistan, they are very often problems. So, therefore, we say we cannot trust America because we have to consider what America did since the creation, since America appeared as an independent state in 1776. You must know that since America is as a nation in the world, since 1776, there had been only 20 years only without war. These people are always be at war, with war. And they are not able to make an army to defend themselves, but always to aggress the other people, America started very badly, the poor Indians, there were 5 million Indians when Christopher Columbus landed in America. At the end of the 18th century, there was anymore only 250,000 Indian people, I don't want to be too chauvinistic as a Frenchman, but I must recognize that Anglo-Saxon people always killed the Aboriginals, I was in Australia. It was the same what the English did in Australia. We, the French, we went to New Caledonia. Today we have problems, but today there are still 40% of the population which is of Kanak origin, When the French were in America, because people must know that America could have been French-speaking.
But we still have some points of presence like Quebec and...
Yes, but as you know, what people don't know, that in fact the French, the only mistake that the French did when Jacques Cartier landed in North America, he landed too north of America. And because the French made a terrible thing, they took the present Quebec, about half of Ontario, and they went down the Mississippi River up, and they made the junction with Louisiana. Which means that, in fact, the English in Boston, so they were completely surrounded by the French. When Napoleon sold Louisiana to Napoleon, people don't know, but Louisiana at the time, it was one third of the present U.S. Louisiana was it was not the present Louisiana. The capital of Louisiana was Chicago. Illinois, all these names, Illinois in French, Saint Paul, okay. That's why you say, coming back to the American people, that these people, they think they are, from the very beginning, they founded an empire. The founder of America spoke of an empire from the very beginning. Maybe they were right because they felt this, like Russia, the immensity of the country. And they, as soon as they get some strength, they started to invade the world. It started when the first war against Spain. Where there was a cruiser in Havana harbor. It was crushed by the Americans themselves, and the Americans said, You the bad Spaniards, you have sunk our ship. Therefore, now we will invade Cuba. We will take the Philippines. We will take, the many strategic islands all over the world. Therefore, you must know that the one who was the very famous writer was a Republican. I forgot his name. A republic, not an empire. Who wrote this book quite recently. He said himself. He said we must stop to make an empire, and we must. The last word is Anne Sullivan, or I forgot his name. It's Pat Buchanan. Pat Buchanan, who presented himself for the presidency of the U.S. He said himself after 1945, American people are murdered with CIA. People have been there have been official murders by CIA and so on. So we don't even have to wait for the Pacific. The only Pacific president of the U.S. was President Carter, who said recognized officially that the U.S. are a warrior country, and we stop this. Eisenhower said before leaving, stop with all this war industry, and because we are making wars to please to sell arms all over the world. So if you look at the US. They have expanded. They have taken territory with poor Mexico. They have also taken to the Mexican, Texas, and so on. Very often with a illegitimated basis, always with a good argument. Because the problem of the American that, like they did in Iraq, and last time, which I find scandalous for me, is two things which I find very scandalous. It's which is very famous, known all over the world, but I want to draw the attention of the Russian people. It's the famous first war in the first war, and there are two wars in Iraq. There was the first war when the Americans had to find they invaded with the help of the French and to invade Iraq. And when the argument was that the Iraqi people were killing the poor young newborn children, and this it was a lie. But what I find absolutely scandalous, you can imagine such a thing, that there was a woman crying at the Senate in the US. You can imagine this. A young lady, which is 14, 15, 18 years old. And she cries for all the world. And all the world is completely upset because of these terrible Iraqi soldiers who dare to attack the newborn children. And people, when people speak like this at the Senate, it goes for all over the world with the newspapers and so on. It's supposed to be very serious, And what was the case with this bloody story? This young lady was, in fact, the daughter of the ambassador of Kuwait in the US.
No surprise.
And she had been trained during 2 weeks to speak about a false story. It's official now. So it shows you, that these people, they lie, as we say in French, they lie like they breathe, We say in French, mentir comme on respire. To lie like you breathe, It's the American people, look what they're doing now with Russia. I give you the example, with the war in Ukraine. Me, I am neutral. As you know, I'm not a KGB man. I'm fighting for my country.
This is my second question I would like to ask you.
I want to tell you, and I was very honored, because when I was at the Institute of Europe of the Academy of Science of Russia, and when I made my lecture, people need be aware of this. Marc Rousset is not a passionate man for Russia. If he's friend of us, because he thinks that it's interest of his country, which I like Russian people. I have a daughter-in-law who is Russian. I am a very curious man. I have one daughter-in-law who is Russian origin, born in Ekaterinburg, and I have another one with American, born in New York. And everybody speaks French at my house. Okay, that's why you tell you what this story, and I think even I will see even some mistake of communication in Russia, because for me I think it's impossible to accept that these Occidental people repeat daily this say that a bad Russian, they will attack in 5 years' time. But if you look at the very origin of the war in Ukraine, which I explain in 2 chapters in my book, for me it's very clear. America is 100% responsible for the war. I find out, believe it or not, 30, you can imagine, in 2 chapters, reason why Putin was right to attack Ukraine. Otherwise, it was the end of Russia.
To start special military operation.
And I want also to draw your attention. I am a very realistic man, because I say you without being too proud of myself, but you can check the TV freedom in France. 10 days before the 23rd of February 2022, I was, because of my previous books before this book, on an interview with charming people like you. And people ask me about Ukraine and so on. And most of the geopoliticians in France say, no, there will be no attack. Me, I'd say 2 things which are very important to show you that I'm not a dreaming fellow. I said, first, I think it's very likely that there will be a war. Yeah. But what I said, which was very grave or very dangerous for me, or very, I dare to say, believe it or not, I said, I think there will be a war. And I said this, which is very, I would say, very grave. It means very, when you say something, you will be very careful what you say. I said, and if Mr. Putin doesn't have the courage to attack militarily the Ukraine, for me, Marc Rousset, the poor little lonely Frenchman, for me, it won't be anymore a great statesman. To show you that as a geopolitician, I consider myself as a Frenchman, that if Russia doesn't make this military action, it's a terrible strategical mistake. And this, I want to make you a comparison, because you understand well my point of view, that if Russia has not attacked Ukraine, in fact, it's not even 100% true, because the Ukrainian already start bombing, shelling 16th of February. But let's just say if Russia have not attacked as they did, and that they should have did, even they should have attacked with more people, maybe that's the only mistake they did, they would have made the same mistakes like the French did in 1936. When Hitler entered Renania with the French people, at the time we were still more powerful than Hitler. And we delayed our crazy general, like the general of today, Mr. Macron, he said, I have not enough aircraft, so I don't want to attack, to go in Renania, in Rhineland. And second point, the British people don't want to intervene also. Therefore, we don't move. Okay. We didn't move. Maybe there would have been 100, 200 French people killed. We got 50 million people killed. If Russia had to attack. And I tell you, I give you even a historical comparison. You say, finally, you can. Well, I consider more this Ukrainian war. Because the Americans, they always are. But when they did, when President Lincoln decided to make the secession war in the 1860, there were about 600,000 people killed in the U.S. And why President Lincoln did this? It was also civil war, which he made. And I compare this war, and he did this to save the unity of the U.S. because at that time you got free trade in the South and you got protectionism in the North. So President Lincoln, in fact, made the war, entered the war with the southern countries.
He made the war and then he became
the
president of
people,
the peace.
They are also making the good war. If the war is America, the bomb of America, they are acceptized, I think they are, they are not real bombs, The poor Serbs, they received 80,000 tons of bomb. 30,000 tons were with powdered uranium, because the American people, they got cancer and a lot of disease. In Iraq, they also use the nuclear weapons, American, in Fallujah, they use tactical weapons. That's why they won in Fallujah, The American people, either they bombed 10,000 meters, or they use, but their own soldiers, they are, it's another story. Okay, that should tell you, I have a lot of examples. Another thing which come to my mind, because my book, you see, there are so many things, I can speak 1 century about this book. I give you this last example. The only people in the world who launched a nuclear bomb up to now, it's the American people.
Yes.
But what the people don't know, which is very important, what the people don't know, that the Japanese would have signed the treaty without the nuclear bomb what the people don't know in history, which is also explained in my book. You must know that when America launched the nuclear bomb, it was not to crush down the Japanese. It was towards Stalin, to show Stalin
what kind of weapon we have in order to threat Moscow.
Stalin, we have the nuclear weapon, so be cautious also. One day you could have even trouble with us, and to show the powerful, which was true at that point, because America at that point was still a courageous army, was still a conservative country. At that time, America was a little bit like Europe, okay. So this is also another example why America has blood in the hand. You must know that all the MacArthur, the Admiral Chimnitz, and all these great admirals or general-in-chiefs who fought for U.S. in Asia, they were not. They didn't give their opinion, It's just the people with Roosevelt and some CIA people who decided to launch. But I explained this in my book. Even Eisenhower himself, all these people say it's criminal what we did. It's a shame, MacArthur, General Patton also was against the use of, he says, what we did is a criminal act, you see. Because we could have won, the Japanese were ready to surrender without without bombing twice. And there are so many other arguments, which could come up to my mind,
Marc, how do you live with such let's say, attitudes that go against the mainstream media in Europe and in the United States? Basically, I think that some people at your own country or in the West in general could call you the Kremlin agent or something like that. how do you live with that? It's not. What you say is very close to what we Russian people think and feel. So for us, it's very close to the reality, to the real
it's
world.
Close.
But it's something that go against. It contradicts with what media try to install in the mindset of the Western people. Is it difficult to live with a different mindset and approach in the West?
Yes, but I answer you, but I could speak also for the lack of freedom now. If you because in Europe we speak about dictatorship, but people are not allowed to write such a book for the people who are ahead of France, and which is absolutely the paradoxal thing. Because what I'm doing, in fact, I'm just updating the thinking of General de Gaulle. So all the French people, they say, "Oh, General de Gaulle, yes," but what we are doing exactly the contrary of what we are doing in de Gaulle. De Gaulle wanted to make friendship with Russia. So what I'm living, I'm living. I say it's scandalous because we are the people who are ahead of France. The level. Look, this poor general. Look, the last general who spoke. It's absolutely incredible. We said to the French, you have to know, French people. It's time to go to be very serious. You must think that your kids will have to die tomorrow. Oh yes, why? Between all the mayors of France, you have to be serious, people, because tomorrow your kids will have to die. It's a very bad news for you. But the enemy is Russia. We have an army with 6 days ammunition. It's just some samples. We are not able to make war. Russia, Putin, and Gorbachev, which I explained in my book, wanted to near with Russia. We didn't respect the famous agreement. In French, it could come back to my mind. Les accords de Minsk, the Minsk agreement, which was officially acknowledged by Mrs. Merkel and President François Hollande. And these stupid people, they want to. In fact, they do this to keep the power, But in fact, the general. We have this type of general, which is like Daladier in 1939. This fellow, you must know, he was colonel 6 years ago, and because he's a stupid fellow, he's intelligent. He was very good pilot, a good scientist, but he's thinking like President Macron, and he was colonel, and in 6 years' time, he's general chief of the French army, and you see such a thing. So what I say to myself, first, I am 81 years old. I have the chance to have thought like few French people during 30 years. I have the minimum courage to write a book about these facts. And I will go to Russia. Tomorrow I will go to other countries. I'm not in a political action. My chance also is that I'm not looking for advertising. I'm about myself, that people speak about me in the media. I have no interest of this. Me, what I have interest, only passion is my country. I would die for my country. With 81 years today, I can die for my country. I'm sorry to say, but it's true. And I have this courage, but I'm not provocative. And up to now, I have no problem, but and moreover, I am not with. As I say, we must be friends with Russia to bring you before the court. But it may happen tomorrow, because now they are thinking about a system where they will introduce a new organization with some civil servants. We should depend directly from the Prime Minister, And then I could be in danger because these people were there at the disposal of the prime minister. They will say, you don't like Russia, so we don't like this in our. So this fellow, he will have trouble, So what you may have, you have a fiscal control, or you may you have an association which has money from the government. Very often, we will go to justice, and you, the poor citizen, you are before the court, and you say, you like Russia? No, you are a very bad Frenchman. Therefore, maybe you go to jail. I don't know. You will pay such a fee. The last scandal in Paris, will show you. If you are a patriot today, if you say the truth, you have real trouble. I give you the best, famous example, which happened just before when I left Paris 8 days ago. It was some 20 or 30 young patriots who dared on Trocadero Plaza, Trocadero Square, where the Trocadero Square in Paris, to have a very ironical banderole.
Banners.
Something, you show you write something. And it was written on this famous, the famous banderole in French. It was written 10 years, yes, it was very, very ironical. It was to regret and to celebrate the attack of the terrorists in Paris, where you got 200 people killed and 100 wounded. The famous. If I speak French, it will come back to my mind. In English, it doesn't come back to my mind. Le Bataclan, and it's a famous, and they say 10 years after, it was very ironical and very well thought about. 10 years after, the enemy is still there. It was well said. The enemy is still there. So people were very furious because, it's true. Our people, they don't do anything against the terrorists. They want to attack Russia, but they don't want to look after. We got 500 people who enter France every year. You get Islam problem. You get people who put bombs. You get people who get stabbed in the streets. And these people, they do nothing against the real French people enemy, and they want to use our army, which has no arm, no weapons against Russia, who because of President Putin has recovered and maybe has one of the strongest armies, if not the strongest army in the world, and they want us to give our last kids, which have not stabbed by the terrorists. They want we send them to attack Russia.
Marc, just to highlight what you have just said. So recently, French Defense Chief Fabien Mandon, he noted that Europe has enough economic and demographic forces to contain Russia, but, let me quote, lacks the willingness to accept suffering to protect itself. And he also added that French people must be ready to sacrifice their own children.
Yes, I am not lying. I'm speaking the truth. When I write something, and that's why I must say, with modesty, this book is not it's not. I get there is some passion because I'm, and my problem, my personal testimony also is very important. Why I am so sad? Because I am the generation who saw a country which is France, unfortunately, which recovered very quick and very good after the Second World War, with economy, with General de Gaulle, even with economy at one point, even the US, they said, but God, the French, if they go this way, they will even do better than the Germans, And you see this country, which has recovered in 30 years, without war, without nothing, without earthquake, without the Germans, they made unification of Germany. They had to spend money to make the unification. Only because of our stupidity, we go bankrupt. That's why I am I'm very sad, because I am the generation who gives the example of a country which falls down only because of his own fault, because there is no external reasons. There is no attack. People, if we had been clever enough, they would know Muslim people, or just some Muslim. Nothing against Muslim people, but when you get thousands or millions of Muslim people, at that point you may have a problem, That's why, only I am an economist, I'm PhD in economics, and I was a CEO, in a company. You must know, when you speak about the deficit of France, they always compare our deficit with the gross national product. But what you must know is that this bloody deficit of France, if you compare with the revenue of the income, then you see the problem, because it represents about between 60 or 80% of the income, of the total income. So if these people were, or if our political people were intelligent, it would say to the French, instead of saying, oh, look, we have only 3% of the gross national product. So French people, 3%, 2%, it's okay. Okay. But if they have said, okay, but it's 70% of our total income, which is a deficit. Every company which has 70% of the turnover, you say the CEO, he must leave in 1 week.
Go away.
In 1 week, go away. And since 40 years, fear zero, 50 years is that we got a famous ministry who said once with President Chirac, he said, Mr. President, you know that France doesn't work well. With Chirac already, Chirac, he was the first one. Oh, Chirac said, don't worry, we will always manage. You react like a CEO, but we will make it. Yes, you see the point. The political men, they knew that they could borrow, and they didn't react.
Marc, let's continue this topic. To your mind, what do ordinary French people, your compatriots, think about current events in the world and current events, for example, in Ukraine, about Zelensky's corruption, and so on? Do they understand your simple thoughts you are speaking about now?
Yes, you see, first of all, I must say that I have a very important thing to tell you. In fact, it's not the French people, even the European people who want to make war with Russia. You must understand that the people who are at the head of the governments which are making war. And it's terrible. I have not to forget your question, but it's terrible because they are making such a propaganda. It's true. That finally they succeed to put some fear, not some hate, because the French people don't hate Russia as such, but some fear. Say, when you repeat every day at the radio, tomorrow it's the enemy. And I myself, I'm originating from the French Harvard, which is called HEC, which is, I think, is as famous as intellectual level, even more famous than Harvard. I don't want to be too chauvinistic, but I give you this as a testimony. I was very disappointed. Very disappointed. That when it was my, after 50 years, we graduated 50 years ago. We're making a meal because alumni of the company, and my alumni have my friends, alumni of HEC have a good intellectual background. But when you speak about Russia, I was very disappointed because they don't know. People don't know. Because Russia also is something a little particular. They don't know. And I was very disappointed. And you realize that these people are, they don't know. But after years and months, propaganda has effect in their minds, in their brains, Okay, that's what I want to tell you. And so what happens? What you must know is that on the rightist people, on the patriot side, I would say, maybe for me that's the more intelligent people. I think a man who is leftist is a stupid people because he's dreaming and he doesn't realize that he's mixing up dreams and reality of life. And the 80% of the patriots are in favor of Russia, and even most of them want a victory, like me. I want the total. I would add up something even very important. I want total victory. I don't want a truce in Ukraine. I want to give you my point of view. And I have a very important information example I'll give you about this point. Because don't make truce in Ukraine. Don't forget this last nonsense about this last treaty which comes from, I don't know, from God. I hope I don't forget your first question, but I give you this example. Don't make the mistake of France in 1918. We made the mistake with the Allied not to go up to Berlin. And if we got war with Hitler, it's because the French forces, the Allied, many marshals in France said, no, don't stop in November 1918. You must defeat the Germans, go up to Berlin. And there were people who said, oh, enough dead people. And finally we did. And the Americans, once more, said, make peace. Why? Because we are here. And if you have trouble with the Germans, as you know, you can trust your good friend America. As
usual.
And you know what happened in 1949? When the German army went through the Ardennes, not a single American soldier shot out the mustache, and nobody came. That's why you cannot trust America. So coming back to your question about the people didn't accept. He made a mistake as the general because he went too far. So finally, you got a reaction even from some leftist people. So they didn't succeed. But people don't know exactly what happens, and the reason I tell you, because the very reason why I am so outright this man, also, how do you say, categorical man. Sorry to say, because I dare to say that I think I understand completely what is the Ukraine war. For me, it's internal civil war of Ukraine. Ukraine has to be Russian. It's because of historical reason. Everything I explained in my book, But this, as long as you don't know history, as long as you don't know what that there was a coup d'état in 2014 in Ukraine, which was officially recognized by Victoria Nuland. As long as you don't know that les accords de Minsk, I must speak French to find out the name. Minsk agreements have not been respected, and so on. Then you can react as some very minority, even of some rightist, stupid French patriots, which are about 10%, 20%, which is the famous stupid comprehension of the fact. Okay, Russia is a bad country which attacks. Who is attacking? That's Russia. Okay, Russia is attacking, and Ukraine is a sovereign country. Look at the UN, and therefore Russia is 100% wrong. And me, I want to fight Russia. And then I tell you something which I explained which is very important also for the Russian. I think Russia should dispatch this all over the world. I tell you, these Montesquieu words, which I explained, I gave to your rector, Mr. Anatoly Turkunov, MGMO, who kindly accepted me in his office, like you. And when I told you Montesquieu, he really appreciated his saying. And look what Montesquieu said. The one who is responsible for a war is not the one who is attacking, is the one who is at the origin of the war, is the one who did everything to that there is a war, So therefore, you have the appearance, but the importance is the real facts, If you put me in trouble, what happened to Russia? Because the real reason why Russia did attack Ukraine. The war in Ukraine, do you know when it started? It started when the wall of Berlin fell down, obviously. But in fact, I think it started already with the Victoria Queen, with the Crimea War, where the poor Frenchmen, we made war against Russia, which was a stupid war. We had nothing to do. It was the Anglo-Saxon. It's a war of the Anglo-Saxon world. UK. And US, don't forget this, there is no doubt about this, against Russia, which is the continental power. That's the basic geopolitical reason, And with the famous book of Zbigniew Brzezinski, the great chess, You have to split Russia in three. Right?
Yeah, it's everything is explained. Yeah, Mark, unfortunately we are running out of time, but we still want to ask
I shut up and I listen to you.
The final question, it's just to conclude your profound explanation about how French people feel about Russia and the current drastic situation in Ukraine and the battlefield, etc. Yeah. So let me also to quote the latest news. For example, the deal between Ukraine and France. According to this deal, about 100 Rafale jet fighters should be transferred to Ukraine.
It's a big joke. That's a big joke.
As well as air defense system, radar system, drones, etc. And the most important that the observers, the experts say that it will take about 5 years, no less, because it's a huge deal. And the question is how it can happen, because in 5 years there will be nothing and no place, to send these weapons.
No, that's a very good example of these people, they're dreaming and they're telling a story, and this is a good example, this 100 Rafale story. My prognostic, what I want is that it should be total victory of Russia, but I think total Ukraine will fall down in, I hope that in springtime at the latest, or June at the latest, the war will be over, and that it will be end of the war. The only thing to do this, but I answer with this question. That's a good example. Because of my opinion, because I'm following what happened again with the war. I know exactly what the Russians about the tactic with the new drone war and so on. I think in some months' time the Ukrainian will fall down completely. So these people, to justify I think it's to justify the interest of the war that Macron said to the French people, you see, me, I can sell Rafale, I am the prestigious, which is true, that it's a very good aircraft. I am not an aircraft salesman, but the aircraft is very good, better than the F-35 of America, and even less expensive. So it's a good example of a country which is in total bankruptcy, which even cannot go up to the end of 2025 year without if the Europeans don't give money, because the Americans don't want to give any money, which has nothing to finance. Dare to sign a letter of intention that they will, because this is not a contract, in fact, it's just a letter of intention. So it's just Mr. Macron who does this for his permanent movie in the world. And Ukraine, I think they made this to sustain the morale of their people and to say, look, in some time we can keep on. We have already, because to my opinion, there are already more 1 million Ukrainian soldiers dead today, because my personal statistics, because of America. And that's why America is a criminal country. Because if there are people, this I tell you, it's pain in my heart. Because when I think all this 1 million poor Ukrainians which has fallen only because of America, because I repeat, it's only because of America. And I can, as we say in French, the head on the scaffold, I will shout it. There is no doubt about it. So today, this new deep state in Europe, to justify their, to try to stay under power, they want to make a war, and so they say they will make war with Russia, although they don't have the means. And they tell stories like this, that they will sell 100 Rafale So this is not serious, and for all this reason, I think we should make the revolution to get rid of these people. That's the only thing.
And the revolution, that's what French people could do, better than anyone in the world.
Yes, but you don't forget one thing. I must say that the people. I must say, and you see, I'm not so chauvinistic. Because what happened today to the French people is also the responsibility of the French people. We like it or not, they always elected, they always all listen to these leftist stories at the last minute, not vote for they will, for 5 years, they will say, we have enough with assassination, we have enough with the economy, we're losing our industry. And when come time for election, you have a fellow who say, look at the bad rightist, fascist, Hitler, and so on. Oh, yes, the rightists, they are fascists. So they will vote against once more for the leftists and socialists. We will bring them the bankruptcy. So they are also responsible, for what happened today, because they elected this. The best example what happened in the last time.
Marc.
So I answer on one other question. If you have another question to ask, with a great pleasure. I could speak very long time, because my book is endless.
And the very, very last question, our traditional question, if it's possible, if we are talking about something common between peoples and nations, between French people and Russians, what can you notice, first of all?
Between with the country? Well, I would say that they are the people who have the courage to elect political people who are state people. What we did, for instance, my ancestors, they were traditional Europeans with traditional values, and they will react like most of the other European countries, up today in Europe, and that's one of the reasons, only the Russian people have the traditional European values. For me, it's travail, famille, patrie. It means work, family, and fatherland. That's very important, And that's what makes the greatness of Europe. Why Europe was great all over the world, and when Europe had these values. Today, you have the country who will recover quickly these values. And that's why what I'm seeing with President Trump, I see two points. The good point with Trump and the bad point with Trump. The good point with Trump is that he's fighting for the traditional European values. The bad point for Trump as a European is that he's a real imperialistic fellow, But the difference with Trump is that he dares to say it officially. But up to now, it was the same. We have always lived with American imperialism. So I think you have the people who in their history sometimes have always sustained, be courageous, and sometimes people with countries who disappear because they're making strategical mistakes, they are losing the courage, and they are also, which is my message to Russia, learning which is very important for the country with future, which is my message to Russia, the demography, which is very important for a country to have children and kids, because, and particularly for a great country like Russia, if you have not enough people, it's very dangerous for your country. So you have country which have the courage to have families, to have children, to work, and you have country who dream like Argentina, for instance. Since President Perón, Argentina was a very rich country in 1940. Then you got socialism with President Perón, and then Argentina fell down during 50 years, and they had to wait Milei with his Sao machinery. But I am in favor of Milei, I am in favor of Trump. I am for President Putin. I am for the people who have at one point the courage to elect state people, And I said that for Russia, I was very lucky to vote for President Putin in year 2000, because he made a tremendous work. You have the courage, and you have people who are for cultural reason, like Africa, for instance. I have nothing against black people as such, but I must state that this country, because of their culture, because of their they are up to now. Maybe tomorrow they will do it, but you see, you don't see a real future. When you see the Asian countries, they are more working people because of their culture. You see, you look China. In 50 years, what they did, built up. I think I don't think that in Africa something such will happen. Look, Russia in 20 years was happened to build up again a strong, a powerful nation. When you think what happened during 10 years after the 1980, this terrible year 90, from 1990 to 2000. So the Russian people, they were down, and in 25 years, look what happened with Russia now. It's because you have the chance also to have a statement, a man like General de Gaulle. So you have I would say you have also the people who have the chance to elect a good statement, because if a statement wants to take money and think only about himself, then the country will fall down, that's why you have people who come up. It's very important. It's to the choice of the fellow the same like king in Russia. You had Peter the Great, you had Catherine the Second. You have President Putin, and you have countries like France today who has President Macron.
Thank you very much, Marc.
The final word. I don't say anymore.
We were waiting for this final words, and I think it's the best conclusion for our discussion.
Thank you very much for this exciting conversation.
Let's put 3 dots here, and we'll definitely continue.
I'm a real politic. I am not lying, which is a terrible truth.
Okay.
Marc Rousset, a well-known French writer and columnist. Thank you very much, and
Thank you for
see you
your
again.
invitation.
Merci beaucoup for being with us.
Zvezda Holding presents Dynamic Spectrum Talks. Now.